And I think we can look at other people's stories and we scroll out and go, oh, wow, I see myself in that. I see myself in that feeling.
Welcome to Let's Talk, ladies, Conversations Across Generations. I'm MB Roberts, an author and journalist, and this is a podcast where we talk to women from their 20s to their 90s about a bunch of hot topics. We ask questions, share experiences, and learn from each other. And it's not just about older women giving advice. We want to know what younger women are thinking too. So let's get talking. Like many creative people I know, Dawn Cunningham wears a bunch of different hats. She's a wife and mom, and when you hear her voice, you won't be one bit surprised that she's a voice artist and a podcast host, among many other things. Dawn has years of experience as a performer, an MC, a moderator, a host, a singer, and a professional voiceover artist, as I said. She was even a featured performer years ago at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. Now that's pretty cool. Dawn's podcast, The Soul Goals, is where people share real stories, real struggles, and real triumphs. I've been listening to The Soul Goals for a while, and what jumped out at me was the stories. Everybody's got one. Some people just need help telling theirs. And what's really intriguing to me after listening to the episodes on the podcast is the stories people tell themselves or tell the world about themselves is sometimes different. Stories are important enough to shape our lives, and we just all need help figuring out how to craft that narrative. Let's see if we can get Dawn to tell us her story. Well, hi, Dawn.
Hi, MB. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm thrilled to talk to you. I do talk to you a good bit outside of this situation, but yeah, we're gonna get it done today. We have some cool things to talk about. So
Yes.
thanks for being here with us. Well, so as a podcaster, fellow podcaster, tell me about your podcast, what it is, and how it came to be.
All right. So I'm a host and the creator of the Soul Goals podcast. It's actually a platform, the Soul Goals, and it's a
Hmm.
human based experience. It's really focusing on the side of connection, relatability, people knowing that their stories matter and that they make a difference by being here. And I think a lot of people don't feel that, especially kind of when we're in the trenches of life and we're experiencing something that's harder, and a lot of times we feel very solitary. So in an effort to
Sure.
connect people and I mean, selfishly, I mean, I feel like I started this for myself as well, just because it's a way to connect with people that's, if you have a trouble being vulnerable, if you have trouble kind of reaching out, I always felt like if you could turn on a podcast and you could listen to it in the comfort of your headphones, wherever you're at in your car, walking on the treadmill, cooking in the kitchen, whatever it is, that you might be able to hear just a little bit of something you could take into your day, into your life, into your experience that someone else is going through. So the idea for the podcast to start, which it's evolved over the course of the last 3 years, is to hear from people and their stories about what it is that they're walking through, the challenges they've gone through, all the different life that they've lived. Like I said, in an effort for us to know we're not alone. There are other people out there that are experiencing and having the same feelings as we are. And I believe that in that relatability is where we find a lot of healing. Like again, selfishly, I feel like I'm healing a lot of my own stuff by listening to my guests every week
Mm.
and listening to their stories and what they've walked through. And it's super perspective giving. And I think we can look at other people's stories and we scroll out and go, oh, wow, I see myself in that. I see myself in that feeling. And when I see myself, I feel like I'm being seen. I feel like I'm being heard. And that's honorable, and that creates safety, that creates trust, and that really creates authenticity. So it's giving us permission to be who we really are. Like, your story matters. The tagline was always, everyone has a story and every story matters. So let's make your story count. And
Yeah,
it's
so
so
how
true.
did you how was that burning in you, like, for a long time? Like, how did you really, just hone in on, I wanna hear people's stories, I wanna do a podcast? I mean, obviously, you have talent as a voice artist, and and a creative person, but how did the story piece, were you finding that, one-on-one somebody was likely to share something with you, like, before the podcast or, just in different situations? Were you feeling like you wanted to be heard more?
Oh, 100%. In all of my healing, my therapy through my course with my addiction in the past, all the different things that I've done to work through all those processes really boiled down to me needing to feel safe, needing to feel support. And ultimately, you got to find out within yourself before you can. It's searching for other people to do that for you is a misnomer. It's never going to happen. You really
Mm.
have to be fundamentally sound in your own story and in your own place and do that work. It's hard work, but I feel like having the scaffolding around you is really invaluable to being able to step into those shoes and do that work through your story. The podcast, your question was, how did this kind of happen? I feel like it kind of toppled out of me. Like literally, like it was a God wink that I'd had this idea for probably a month or two. And I was like, oh, a podcast would be really cool to do. And I have a lot of friends that have walked through a lot of shit, like a lot of stuff, and myself included. And I'm like, people need to hear that story. That's really so invaluable. Like, you need to tell that. And I thought, I've worked with people as a personal trainer for 20 plus years. I couldn't tell people anymore that these bicep curls are going to change your life, because they're not. There's so much more to it,
They're going
right?
to
And
change your upper arm, but not your
that's
life.
it. Correct. Correct. There's just so much more to it. And I think it's probably as I've aged and walked through the different things that I've gone through, that's kind of
That's
emblazoned
the
in me.
piece, isn't it? It's like, I mean, it's kind of a cliche that, older, wiser, whatever, but, yeah, that's where I like, when I got to be in my 50s, and I'm a little bit older than you, but, connecting with especially girlfriends that were my same age that, like, we had gone to high school together or college together, it seemed like when we hadn't seen each other in our 30s or 40s when you're still trying to prove something, I think,
Mhm.
that everybody had lost a parent. Everybody had, gone through it or, several of my pals are divorced or had addiction issues or lost a job or just been humbled and some everybody just was so really wise kind of looking back and that's what when we started this podcast it was my friend and I in our early 50s things were happening to us physically that
Right.
happen to women
Right.
and I was like, Why didn't we know about this? We
Like,
were freaking out."
sorry.
And
Yeah.
and there is a lot more discussion these days, which I'm glad. There's a lot more information, a lot more, discussion, but our first impulse was, "We have to tell the young people. We have to tell them what's coming."
Yeah.
And then as we started to do the podcast, we realized that that was kinda boring and like, if you're in your 20s, you're not gonna listen to it anyway. I wouldn't have,
Mhm.
but,
Yeah.
like, so it was more about sharing back and forth, but I'm fascinated by the story thing. It's like, the story you tell yourself, like, in my 20s, what was my story? It's a or,
Mm.
I'm interested that, I don't know, I think I kind of had a little bit of sense of self, but I didn't look beyond I didn't even think of being 30,
Yeah.
like, when I was
Yeah.
22. Did
Yeah.
you?
Oh, no. No, and I thought that 40 was, like, ancient, and
Oh,
that's
you didn't even
still the same thing.
like, I didn't
People still
even
think that.
consider, like, when my mom was 40 and I was whatever age I would have been or, it's like, that just like, why would I even worry about that?
So I think probably part of that is actually a gift. If I look back now in my 50s into my 20s where I was really singly, like, honed in on that moment, there is a piece of that that's kind of something that I think I'm trying to get back to, staying in the present instead of living in the
Very much
past or
so.
going to the future.
Yes,
So,
that is I
I
mean,
feel
that's the
like
goal, right? That's really how you, I mean, if you're always living in regret looking back or nostalgic, like, "Oh, everything
Mhm.
was so perfect when I was in my 20s," or worrying about the future. I mean, this is where we wanna be is
Yeah.
present, but, pardon the interruption. We hope you're loving this episode, but we hope you'll just take a moment to follow, subscribe, and comment on the podcast wherever you're listening. And follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. All of this really helps us. Now back to the episode. Well, what about a woman's story? Like, what's different about?
Mm.
I know on your podcast you talk to guys and girls, and I talk to all women. What is it about a woman's story, like, sometimes I see a narrative from somebody that, like, I kinda wanna help them with if they're like, "Oh, I'm not creative," or, "Oh, I am not brave," or, "Oh," how important is a woman's story, to how she kinda goes about life, and how can you kind of use that? That was a big,
Yeah.
long question, Dawn.
All good.
That
All
was
good.
7
Well,
questions in 1.
all good, all good. I feel like a woman's story, I feel like we carry so much, and that is that's the crux from years gone by, and every mother, every wife, every woman of a certain age will say, "I start my day at 6 a.m. and I don't finish my day till 11 o'clock," depending upon the season of life that they're in and the things they're carrying, and I think we carry things that a lot of people don't see, and we feel like we live in this shell of, "It's only me," and, "Oh my gosh, how heavy is all this stuff? No one gets it." So I think the connection to other people and relating our story and letting people know that I'm doing the same thing, I feel the same way is super important, that connectedness, that relatability. But I'm gonna call women out a little bit too, I'm calling myself out because I tend to carry it and not ask for help. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna take care of it. I'm gonna get it done because I don't wanna interfere with anybody else's life. I wanna be the one that takes care of it. I wanna be the
Like,
one
in
that
your family and
Mhm.
your and your work
Family,
both? Like
clients, everything,
yeah,
but I will say, as I've aged, I've realized with different, private clients that I see, I have to walk alongside them. I can't do that work for them. So, the lesson that I can then take for myself from that is that I have a story. I have my stuff. I have to stay in my lane and do my work so that when the highway opens, I'm a better contributor for all the roles that I have. And I think that for women, I think we carry so much of that, ugh, kind of like I have to do it all mentality.
uh-huh,
And I think it's different now than maybe it was, I don't know, 20 years ago. I think there's more emphasis and more um kind of, "Hey, let's talk about this subject more." It's more widely open for people to
right, right,
have
like, I think
conversation.
you're right, 'cause, like, I think of, my mom's generation or my mom in particular, if she felt like she was doing everything and wasn't appreciated, well, this was kind of a personal issue, but she
Mhm,
would just be mad and stop talking to everyone and
mhm.
and be resentful, and,
That's not look, and B, that is something that happens all the time. I hear that with clients that I work with. I hear that in myself when I'm sitting with my therapist, I'm unpacking that. I hear that with my kids and different things. I think that's a universal feeling, that resentment, and if we talk about the role that resentment plays in our stories, I think it can mean something for us if we look at it from all angles and what it's doing to us, what it's doing in our relationships, how that's affecting us, and what we can take accountability for in our story.
right.
Because I think a lot of times, if we're talking about our stories and where we come from, like my story isn't complete until I passed out of this body. Same with you. Our stories begin and they evolve. They're never done until we are through with this life that we're in. So there's a place where as we age, we can ebb and flow with all of that information, or we can sit in a corner and go, like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to
I
deal with it. I don't want to be
really
seen.
don't
I want
wanna
like,
be that person. I just, like, that is just not a way to live.
yeah,
So besides, what is something that this is kind of a left turn, but, do you have siblings?
I
Or
do. Yeah,
okay.
I do.
So, especially regarding, like in a family unit, it's just
Hmm.
interesting how siblings especially, might remember a story differently.
Oh,
And,
totally.
my friend, Liz Welch, great writer, she wrote a memoir years ago with her siblings. They each did a chapter and, big experience. Their parents had died, and then they were on their own when they were really young, and it was fascinating to her and to me that I thought the book was great because each sibling, it's like and I'm sure you've had that happen, like, my brother will be telling a story at Christmas or something, and I go, actually, that didn't happen. It's like and you don't
Yeah.
wanna slow the roll of the good time and go, "That didn't happen," but I'm like, "I really think I'm remembering it right," but isn't it interesting how we remember things differently? Like, have you seen that in your
Hmm.
own family?
Oh
Like,
my gosh. So funny that you talked about this because my older daughter and I drove to go get frozen yogurt last night, and we were just talking about life in general and her relationships and what's going on with her work. And I it was interesting because brought up the fact that her and her sister, who are 3.5 years apart, are from the same 2 people, but look at things and have those experiences so differently and would say the same thing. Like, I remember Christmas, 1999 this way. I remember Christmas 1999 this way. So it's relative. Our experiences are relative, but neither of them is neither good nor better nor less than. You see what I'm
mhm,
saying? I
mhm,
I think if we're talking about our stories and relating to them and being able to relate to other people and how we carry our stuff through this life, it's being open enough to understand that because I feel a certain way about something and I saw it from my lens and my
mhm,
standpoint, that doesn't mean that everybody else is gonna feel the same way. Now, understandably, rationally, we know that, but emotionally and feeling-wise, what does that do to you inside? It rubs you because it's like, "Ooh, that's conflict." Like, I don't like that. That doesn't sit well with me. So when you have that conflict and that rub inside of you, what I've learned for myself is that I have an opportunity to see where that's coming from, how that's affecting myself, how I feel about myself, how I do self talk with myself, how I interrelate with my family here in my household and my clients, my work outside of here, guests on the podcast, all the different things that I do. So I have an opportunity to dive deeper into my story and learn more about what it is that kind of makes me tick. Even though I may feel differently about something than my kid or my husband, doesn't mean that my story or their story is any better nor less than.
right, and I totally understand the emotion part, the feeling part, but, like, just as a journalist, it's like if I hear someone say, "Oh," they're telling a story, and I'm like, "That happened to me, that didn't happen to you." It's kinda hard for me
Mhm.
to square the facts, or my mom had a tendency to, God rest her soul, I'm not trying to throw her under the bus, but, we all know this. She would kind of make stuff up and,
Mhm.
I don't know, for, like, effect or
Mhm.
entertainment value or whatever. We actually had a word for it. Her name was Marilyn, and we called it Marlinian fiction. Like, it was just like, that did not happen, and so
Well, that's so real, okay, because I will tell you my experience with different people along the way, and myself included. I had to learn this the hard way, but a therapist along the way called me out, and it was like, "Look, you can tell yourself the story that you believe if you are stepping away from the reality of it. You can tell yourself that story numerous times in your head, outright to people in your world, and it becomes your truth. Like, it eventually becomes what you really believe. Our brain is wired to believe what we're told, whether we're self-talking or we're hearing it from somebody else. So, the point of being able to stop the horses from running away and going, "All right, I'm gonna make a choice to stop this continual circle, this continual path that I'm on of feeling like this is it, there's no other way, there's no other options, there's no other perspectives for me to look at." Is look, I need to open up the blinders and kinda give myself give some people some grace around me. So when we feel like we're talking about your mom, like I could talk about my dad was the same way, same way, same way, God rest his soul. He would say he would believe these certain specifics, and our whole family be like, "Dude, like, that's a story," but it was his way of it was the only way that he could emote what was happening inside of him and from a safe place and from a
right.
place where he felt like he could communicate what was going on. And if he was too scared to go underneath what was really happening for him in that experience or that story,
Sounds like it. It sounds like
yeah,
that's what
so
it
he's
was.
gonna create yeah, we're gonna create something that feels safe, and I'm gonna tell it to myself, first of all, repeatedly, and then I'm gonna express it this way because that's keeping me safe, and that's a box that I'm gonna put myself in that's important. Now, I will tell you, I spent a lot of time working on letting go of the thought that my mom can step outside of a box and be something different than be something that I needed, because I can't expect someone
Mm.
her, anybody in my life, to be something that I need if they're not meeting themselves where they need to meet themselves.
Oh my
Same
gosh, you
thing for
just you
me.
just that was like a big old firecracker went off there because that's what I was trying to accept my mom for years that this is what she's capable of, so I'm not gonna be mad about that, but, I'd have a hard time squaring the, inaccuracies, like,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
some stories that ends up being hurtful and not just maybe
yeah.
exaggerating a little bit or if they're raw, that's, I'm kinda
Well
going on a different kind of like,
well,
I don't
well,
know,
like, to
therapy
wrap that
tangent.
up no, you're good. I think that to kind of to wrap that point up is it's we can only meet people where they've met themselves. People can only meet us where they've met themselves.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
That's
That's
it.
absolutely it.
And, us expecting more out of them for their stories and what they want to share with us and be vulnerable with us, it's only to the capacity that they're ready to go to. I think everybody
Yeah,
has the capacity to really dive into their story and really live it and really work it and really own it. But there's different pieces along the way that create these gaps that we're like, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to pull over on this roadside. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to have lunch. I'm going to take a little nap. I'm gonna just let the highway go by, and then I'm gonna get back on the highway, and I'm gonna continue with my life. And sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen because there's stuff that's shoved down and, compartmentalized for years that if we were to open up that box if my mom were to open up that Pandora's box, it's intense. There's a lot for her, and I don't know that there would be a capacity for her to be able to work through that at that
yep,
point of her life where she was. So it's understanding that I can only meet her, she can only meet me where she's met herself and where I've met myself,
yeah.
and that's it. It's
Oh my
really
god,
it.
that's really wise, Dawn, and, like, just speaking
Oh,
of meeting yourself where you are, you've put out this terrific book, The Soul Goals. Are you gonna show? Yay!
ah, there
Make your
it is.
story count. It just came out
Yes.
last a little bit ago, and,
Mhm.
tell us about that book because I'm so interested. We're talking about telling your own story, and I got a little hung up on accuracy there, but how is, journaling and kind of going through a process to tell your story, helpful to us and regarding your book?
So the book is a 52-week journal process, and it's not necessarily journaling on everything, but there's exercises, personal growth exercises, and it's loosely based on year number 2 of the podcast where I had a co-host for part of the year. And what we would do would be go in and do these therapeutic exercises each week. Then we'd come back and we would talk about what worked, what didn't work, what we liked, what we
Oh,
didn't
that's
like. And there was,
cool.
yeah, a lot of them that I did not like. And a lot of them I had the basis for all of that is from my points of therapy and different exercises that have been given to me along the way by professionals. So that was the basis of what we were going to do. And I knew that it was going to be hard. There were some of them that I was like, nope, don't want to go there. But I know a lot of times if it's things that I do, I have a resistance to going there, that there's a lesson there for me and there's something I need to know more
It's almost
about.
like in yoga class, the one pose you hate is the one you're supposed to do or in life, like, the things you put off or the things you need to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the goal with the book is to make it digestible enough where people can do an exercise each week that kind of invokes reflection about who they are, what makes them tick, where they come from. And it's not something like there's a couple different things where it's like 3 times this week do X, Y, and Z. Not every day. You don't have to write for 60 minutes in the morning and 60 minutes at night. It's trying to fit personal reflection and self-development into a very busy schedule as it
Mhm,
stands without feeling like there's more pressure to do it, but also knowing that you're worth working on yourself enough to uncover different pieces of your story that matter and that
mhm.
you can grow in and that you can walk through. So, cool thing is, I'm working on the second book right now, hoping to have it out by the end of the year. We'll see. I'll knock on wood, right?
Yay, yeah.
And yeah, it's called The Soul Goals. Can we talk? And this one is going to be an effort to, again, relate where you can pick up the book and there's a question and or an experience that you've had. I just heard the news that I lost a loved one today. And it's then a paragraph over, I see you, I hear you. What does that mean? How can you get through the next moment? And not a tutorial on how to do it, but more of a I see you. Because I feel like so many of our stories are buried inside of us and we put them away because we don't feel like people are seeing us. We don't feel like we have the ability to see or be
Or there's
seen
such
rather.
pressure to I mean, obviously, this is, such a discussion, especially with younger women, but that there's so much pressure to put out a, positive story, like, on, Instagram and everything,
Mhm.
just life is perfect, life is great, and there's how do you reconcile that pressure with really, getting somewhere where you're digging deep? How do you reconcile those 2?
Well, that's a hard question because I think that's a very personal piece because you have to get to a point where you're like, I'm tired of dealing with feeling the way I'm feeling. I'm tired of being overwhelmed. I'm tired of running this anxiety loop in my brain that's telling me I'm not good enough, that it's never going to work. Like the negative forecasting that we tend to do based on our past. Now, I'm not saying that your past has anything to do that is not viable and that doesn't matter. But I'm also suggesting that if we continue to live in stuff that is negative, if we continue to live in things and places that are derogatory to our self talk and who we believe we are, if we can change 1% of our day, and that's what the book, that's the whole idea of that, and the podcast in general is we can change 1% of our day. That's enough to make a shift. That awareness is the beginning of a shift, and that's enough. I don't think we have to solve the whole enchilada over, the course of the next 2 hours, but that little bit and that was the goal, like I said, for the soul goals in general, and if you think about the whole, you have a dark room, right? And you're trying to feel your way around the room to find the exit, but someone cracks that door 1%, there's just a shred of light, and you can see an opportunity when you do that. So I try to tell clients, I try to tell myself, I try to tell my family, my girls when we're talking about something deep, it's like, what's one thing that can help create a little bit of relief in your brain today? What is that? What is that
Right.
for you? So for the social media piece, I think if we can slow ourselves down and find that identity and let go of an expectation that I have to be somebody that I'm not and really sit in our humanness. Man, I had a guest yesterday that I recorded, Daryl Stinson, amazing, amazing person. Such a human at every level. I mean, and his line, and he's so true. He and his wife both do this. Good friends of mine. They preach what they practice. He goes, that doesn't make me a perfect person. That makes me imperfect.
Mhm.
And it made sense. I was like, "We're practicing." Like, I've went to so many practices of my kids when they were playing sports where they fail. When we
Yeah.
practice, we're failing. That's what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But we learn from the practice, and the next rep gets a little bit different, and we have the choice to attempt or to be coachable with life, and it's like, "Hey, I'm gonna throw you this opportunity. What are you gonna do with it?" It may be just a little bit. It may look inconsequential, but where can you find those pieces of hope in your story? So, again, the long look, you asked me one question, and I answered 7 different ways.
Well, I was gonna ask you 7, but, like, I love that too, Dawn, because it's, like, just and from an older person's perspective, sometimes you're just wondering I'm sure you wonder, like, are kids listening? I mean, you don't wanna, like, beat them over the head,
Mm,
but I just have found some really delightful moments, over the years with, my nephews or my niece who are now, late 20s, early 30s, but they'll say something back to me that I said to them, like, a really long time ago, and it's like, in the moment, it wasn't like, "Oh, Aunt B," which they call me, I love it, I get it, but it's like, "Oh, they" so I like to remind sometimes, like, someone who's a parent or I said, "She's listening.
yeah.
She's listening even if it doesn't seem like it." So, I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
not that
and
you're lecturing
mhm,
people, but,
mhm.
that people are gonna remember and maybe get that 1% somewhere where you didn't even realize they did.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend that I used to teach yoga with years ago in Nashville, and we had this phone conversation about something unrelated, actually about the book and about my writing, because she's a very successful author, but she does a different kind of writing than I do. And I was like, "Hey, I'd love to just have a 30-minute conversation with you. Let's talk, let's banter back and forth. Give me some insights about your practice and what it is your writing protocol is." And at the end of the conversation, she gave me such a delightful gift that I was like, she goes, "Yeah, I want you to know that 2 years ago you called me and you said one thing that left such an
Ah,
impact." And I was like, "Oh, wait." Well, of course, it made me cry, but it made me go, "Okay, I didn't even remember saying that. I didn't remember saying that." So I think what we have to keep in context is that we do carry a lot of impact in people's lives by sharing ourselves and sharing vulnerable pieces of ourselves, because that's what it was. I shared something vulnerable with her
yeah,
because I felt safe enough to do so.
yeah,
And it affected her in a way that helped her get through a piece of a season of life for her. I had no idea the
yeah,
ripple effect that I talk about that in the journal, the Soul Goals Make Your Story Count book that I have.
yep,
You just never you just never know. So, fundamentally, if you can live in your authentic humanness, in your imperfection, in your practice, and go back to center, like, how are you gonna choose to live today? How are you
yeah,
gonna choose to live today? In what place are you gonna live today? And know that if you fall off the wagon at noon, right? You can get back on the wagon and say, "All right, I had it. This is a moment. It's okay. I'm real. I'm an imperfect soul. I can do the best that I can. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get back on the cart. And here we go. I'm going to
yep.
try. I'm going to do the next minute. I'm going to do the next hour. I'm
Well,
going to
and
do the
no
next."
no movie or great novel is just like everything's perfect. There's always a big dip and a big challenge and a story arc. So we
Yeah.
just have to accept that we have to create a story arc as well. And
Yeah. And
it's
that's
always
funny too,
what we
because,
do now, what we do today, not what we did,
right.
right?
I had a conversation with a client literally earlier this week. And we were talking about that arc, the same thing you're talking about, that up and the down, right? So, e high highs and low lows, and it was like being a little bit more moderate. We don't wanna be flatline. No one wants to be flatline. You wanna experience the things because the hard things make the good things, really matter. The hard work that we put in, the intensity and the fortitude that we feed our lives with, and the work that we do, the self-work that we do, investment in ourself makes the good things like, "Oh my gosh, look at what came from that." However, living in those nooks and those tops and not coming out of them can sometimes feel incapacitating, right? It can make our stories feel like, "I'm never gonna get out of this hole."
Yep.
And I'm like, if you can give that one, that's why I always tell people, it's the 1%. I don't even know where I heard that. It's not mine. I got that years ago from a coach along the way. And the 1% just really stuck with me because I felt like if you can give somebody, including yourself, I'm looking at myself, look at my eyes right there. I can give myself that grace that if I can make a 1% switch, at least that's a 1% relief. That's a 1% effort to move the needle forward on my story in a positive way. And, I'm worth that. We're all worth that. We are
Yep.
all worth it.
Yeah. That is well, what a perfect wrap there, Dawn. That's we're all worth it. We have 1%. We're gonna work on telling our stories. And thank you for telling us your story today.
Oh, you're
So
welcome.
so appreciate it. And we'll be listening to the soul goals. And it's great having you here. So thanks again for being here.
Absolutely. I love talking. Thanks, Amby.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Let's Talk, Ladies, Conversations Across Generations. We'd love to hear from you. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the show on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And you can comment on the episode on any of these platforms. We love the feedback, and it also really helps us with sponsors. So leave those comments. We so appreciate it. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook. You can also send us an email at ltlconversations@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 629-888-3542. See you next time on LTL.